Hey guys, Alex and Dan from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who Classic. Last time around we started off Doctor Who and the Silurians. What was that one about?
Well, there's this underground nuclear facility somewhere in England, but they're having problems. They're losing power, and then it comes back, and they couldn't figure out what's going on, and there's some caves, and something seemed to attack some people who went down to discover it. So UNIT gets involved, and of course, Lethbridge Stewart. By the way, what is Lethbridge Stewart's first name?
Alistair.
Okay.
His full name is Alistair Gordon Lethbridge Stewart.
Okay. I don't know that they've ever said that yet, have they?
Maybe like at his first introduction, but they never call him that.
Oh, I was going to say. Anyway, so he calls in the doctor, and what's her name? Liz.
Liz, yes.
And they discover that down in the caves, there's this amazing creature, or creatures plural, called the Silurians, who are apparently left over from the Silurian period, way back before even the Jurassic period, etc. Anyway, the Silurians are coming out of hibernation. Not exactly sure what they're doing down there, but they claim that the Earth was theirs before the humans existed, so they're somewhat, I guess, intent on taking it back.
Yeah, at least some of them are. I don't remember if it was all of them or not. But the Doctor is trying to mediate peace between the humans and the Silurians, which is going about as well as you would expect, especially with Lethbridge Stewart taking the more military approach. Yeah. And, well, we'll figure it out after we contain the threat. So, of course, they don't even know if there is a threat. So, but yeah, that's where we started off. I think last we saw UNIT was going into face the Silurians, and one of them claims that all the humans were killed, and then they were going to kill the Doctor. So
yeah, the Doctor and somebody are imprisoned by the Silurians at this point.
Yeah, because the Doctor wanted to talk to them. So yeah. So that was that. Now we move on to the next three parts of this story.
And the Silurian costumes were really quite good. I think the only little quibble I had is that it didn't allow enough movement of the lower part of the face. But other than that, they have the third eye that kind of generates this beam or something. I don't know. But very effective. I mean, for, I hate to say Monster of the Week, because I know we're going to get a lot of that. Very effective looking costume and makeup for the Silurians.
Yeah, definitely. You got anything else?
I got nothing.
Then we might as well just hop right into the next three parts of the Silurians. Here we go.
You've seen them?
Yes, so has the Doctor.
Right. 3 people have seen them. They do exist, and we've got to attack them first.
Just because they're an alien species, that doesn't mean we have to kill them. But
they're not exactly aliens.
Remember, one of us was wounded by such a weapon. The apes have become dangerous. They must be destroyed. Our leader seems to have different
apes versus reptiles.
I know. He has taken one of these creatures into our control room.
It's Godzilla versus Kong.
I shall wait until I get another report.
Aren't you going to do anything?
Not for the moment.
But if you don't do something
I've made my decision, Miss Dawson.
I like this guy.
We ruled this world millions of years ago.
Then why did you stay down here?
And why do we not have any other evidence of them?
We calculated that it would draw off our atmosphere, destroying all life. We built this place and suspended our lives till the atmosphere should return.
But don't you see that small planet was drawn into the Earth's orbit and became the moon? Your catastrophe never happened.
Well, it wasn't the specific meteor that wiped out the dinosaurs. They were just preemptively hiding.
There is not room for both civilizations.
Yes, I think there is. You see, your people are used to living in extreme heat, whereas these areas on Earth are of little interest to man. I believe with your advanced technology that you could build cities in parts of the world that man has hitherto completely ignored.
It's interesting bringing up, go to the really warm places. I think I mentioned last week they sort of use this plot line again later on. They use that exact same thing too, where it's like, oh, go to the Sahara Desert or something.
Yeah. Well, the Silurians would need like the Amazon rainforest or the Congo or someplace in Indonesia maybe.
Yeah.
Where you get both heat and humidity, because they couldn't live in the Sahara, I wouldn't think.
Well.
Giving him some kind of plague or disease of some kind.
Maybe.
They said when they attacked the crops, they killed millions, but...
You are no longer fit to lead us. I shall destroy you if you defy me again. Now go.
One minor thing, there should be some kind of insignia to show that he's the leader.
Well,
Other than the fact that he seems shorter than everybody else. There's not much to distinguish him.
well.
Is there any cure for this disease?
No, but I have brought the bacteria. Perhaps your scientists can find a cure.
Yes. Yes, of course, but you must release
Could
me
be something
at
as
once.
simple as smallpox, which even by the 70s they were working on wiping out.
Men have had a chance to rest. What are you talking about?
Major Baker, you are ill. You are very, very ill.
I hope him doing that is like a meme of some sort.
I'm placing you under arrest.
That was too easy.
He was no
Look.
longer fit to lead us.
Don't touch him, you idiot.
Look. Why'd you take your glove? Well, it probably doesn't affect him.
Is he dead?
Yes. The first one.
Oh, man, topical. People that won't listen and are doing things they shouldn't, and disease. It's
Now, again, it strikes me that this may be something that they will be able to cure, but I mean, I don't recognize it something that tears up your skin like that, other than like bubonic plague.
Yeah.
But I don't think it would have affected him that quickly.
yeah. I mean, it could be because they said they wiped out millions back then. It could be like a fast-acting sort of version. So, so yeah. Again, it's interesting just seeing how much of this they are going to sort of reuse again with there's an 11th Doctor episode that pretty much has the whole thing of the Doctors trying to make peace between the humans and the Silurians. Although, interestingly, in that episode, while he does want the peace, he actually sort of leaves them to it. He's like, all right, here's 2 representatives of the humans, whatever companions he has, and you're the Silurians. You guys take care of that, because I can't do this for you. It's not my planet and stuff.
Yeah.
It almost makes me wonder if, like, that in that story is because things aren't going right here with the Doctor playing Peacekeeper, so he decides to try to stay out of it later. So,
Now, this is really going to be kind of a stretch here, but I've been thinking about this. I wonder if this is less about 2 civilizations getting together, but the beginning of the consciousness in civilized places that we don't have the right to exterminate species. I mean, this is the environmental movement, the Environmental Protection Agency here in the United States. For example, you probably know one of the most controversial cases of all. There was a dam that was needed somewhere, if I recall correctly, in the Tennessee Valley, that would provide hydroelectric power for thousands and thousands of people. But there was a very small species of fish called the snail darter, and the construction of the dam would wipe out its habitat and then kill the species. And the question was, even though this is a species that has no effect whatsoever on humankind, do we, as the predominant sentient species on the planet, do we have the right to wipe out lesser species? I mean, it's the same thing with the buffalo that we did in the 1800s, and we're doing all over the world today. So this makes me wonder if this is less about can Europeans get along with Asians, along with Africans, with Americans and South Americans and Australians and so forth, or is this about, do we as humans, as the evolved apes, have the right to wipe out lesser species, whether it's reptile or fish or bird or whatever? So
yeah, it could be something like that. Because the question then is, well, if we did that to the fish, if, let's say years and years down the line, if there is some higher species out there and they decide to do that to us, well, as the British would say, we'd be very cross about that. But
bit of a snit.
yeah, but Yeah, it would, I guess, sort of be the exact same situation. So,
But it's like right now we're doing that with the bees. There are, probably half of the population of the Earth don't realize that if the bees disappear, so will we. If we keep doing things that exterminate bees, even accidentally, we don't realize that will literally kill practically all the crops on the planet.
yeah, I'm pretty positive that's the plot of Bee Movie.
Yeah.
So, or, I mean, kind of, I guess it wasn't extermination, but like they were going to keep all their honey or something like that. But that still sort of, wiped out all that. But yeah, I mean, see, I always try to think, because summer, there's so many bugs around during the summer, which is why I prefer winter. And every time I encounter a bug, like in my room or something, I always think, all right, well, first off, if a bug is in my room, I have carte blanche to kill it. So I'm not... I see a lot of stuff where people are like, oh no, I like put it on a thing and throw it back outside. It's like, no. If you're in my room, you're going to die. So, so first off that. Second off, but I do think like, all right, what is the purpose of this species? And a lot of them, it's like, okay, I can sort of see like spiders or something like that, or the occasional lizard that'll pop up. I know it's not an insect, but they get in too, same way as the spiders. And then I look at a fly, and I think, there must be some purpose for you, but I hate it. So...
Well, again, since there are, billions and trillions of flies in the world, the loss of one fly in your room is not going to hurt.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's mainly... I mean, flies are the most annoying just because they're so elusive. Like, a moth is really nice because you know exactly where that moth is going. It's going to the nearest light source, and you can find it, and you can kill it in cold blood. But flies are just so annoying. But anyway, yeah, it is sort of like that where it's like, okay, if you had a genie's lamp and you wished get rid of all the flies, what effect would that have on the world? Yeah. You do sort of think about that, and it's like, well, I don't know, but they're still annoying.
Yeah.
At least make the wish to keep them out of buildings.
Yeah.
That's got to be like that's probably fine. Just keep them out of buildings. Mosquitoes are another one where it's like there must be a purpose to you, but I really don't see it.
Well, there's a current project where they're trying to breed mosquitoes with a defective gene that literally does not allow them to reproduce. So what they're trying to do is not specifically kill off the entire population, but simply to reduce the mosquito population, because a lot of diseases like malaria and so forth are carried by the mosquitoes. So
yeah, so... And I guess it kind of reminds me of the Star Trek episode where they severed one of the Borg from the collective, and they had the idea of infecting him, sending him back into the collective, and then it would completely wipe out the Borg. Yeah. And they kind of go back and forth on this, and eventually Picard decides, no, we cannot morally do that. Now, if this was Janeway, she probably would have done that,
But, I mean, isn't that the same thing that Tom Baker did? Do I have the right to exterminate the Daleks?
That's true. Yeah, before they were... before they were ever... before they did anything. That's true. So...
well, I'll be interested to see in the next 2 episodes where they're going with this.
Yeah. And as a side note to everything, I only just realized that the undersecretary, his name is Masters. And I'm pretty sure... Slight spoiler alert, I suppose, for the first episode with the Master, which we've already seen. I'm pretty sure he used that name, Masters. So I'm wondering if, I don't know, he kills this guy and takes his name. I don't know. So.
Don't touch him, Brigadier.
Really, everyone should be wearing a mask.
Is he dead?
Will you roll up your sleeve, please, Doctor?
Well, now, wait a minute, Liz.
Now, you have been exposed to the infection just as much as everyone else.
Yes.
I know all about your different biochemistry, but we don't know if it makes you immune. Now, roll your sleeve up. Did it hurt?
Did what hurt? Oh, yes, it was agony.
Now, has everyone here been inoculated?
Yes, they've all been taken care of, except Dr. Lawrence. I can't find him anywhere.
Yes, well, I'd be very happy to lose him. What about that chap from London, Masters?
Haven't seen him either. Better go and find both of them.
So they're still working on a cure, but they already have a vaccine, I guess?
Well, vaccine prevents you from getting a cure. basically...
We were in contact
Yeah.
with Baker. Does that mean that we're infected too?
It just seems so quickly that they made this vaccine.
Not just on location, but also tracking shots.
Well,
Missed him by that much.
no.
I am the leader now.
He really likes that Captain Phillips meme. I'm the captain now.
Their resistance may be
My staff are suffering the ill effects of a series of compulsory injections.
You haven't had your own injections yet, have you?
No, nor do I intend to.
But you've got to have them. It's for your own good.
Rubbish. Why should I
But
waste
this really is
Wow.
topical.
useless
Holy
injections
mackerel.
against an imaginary epidemic?
Dr. Lawrence, it is quite clear that the disease exists. Major Baker is dead.
He may have been ill for some time.
Here, let me take some cow dewormer.
Dr. Lawrence, you must admit that's
It's horse dewormer. Thank you.
They also use it for cows.
Oh.
Saw a meme this morning that said, brilliant idea of putting all the microchips in the cow dewormer.
Oh, what's the matter with him? A ticket collector remembers someone who might have been Masters. Said he looked very ill. Anyway, he got a taxi and drove off.
Well, then they're sure to find him.
Do you know how many taxis there are in London? And how many men who look more or less like Masters?
He's a very plain-looking man. He doesn't have that signature mustache like the Brigadier. Is this that one guy from the Web of Fear? The truck driver?
I don't know.
He kind of looks like him.
Yeah, it's-
Also kind of looks like the Polka Dot Man.
Right, Gallery 5, over.
Nah, I don't think that was his name. You know, having music is good, but kazoos aren't really great.
does look a little like the plague.
Yeah.
No gloves.
Nah.
No masks.
To his credit, he could probably survive this.
Yeah.
I'm beginning to lose confidence for the first time in my life. And that covers several thousand years.
No.
I think this could have all been done with a montage and got down to 6 episodes. I mean, this is nice, but it's not dramatic television.
The Ministry.
Masters?
He's dead.
Maybe that's how the Master takes his name.
Outbreaks. You really must report to the isolation ward at once.
I've had enough of you.
I really must insist, sir. You're endangering all of us.
Insist. Who are you to insist?
Now listen,
Shoot him.
before you...
He's dead.
And not much was lost.
The first one abroad. Paris.
Jeez.
We can't contain it in Britain. What chance has the world got?
Only we prevented Masters from leaving here.
If only you had a time
Found the
machine.
antidote?
But it works in the laboratory. Now let's see what...
I mean, if only. We don't. That's the thing.
Hello again. The Daily what? How did you get hold of this number? Look, I have no comment to make. Now, will you please get off this line? What's
Anyway.
keeping the doctor?
So it makes a perfect oval entrance there.
Sure. Alright.
Now,
Again,
again,
part 6.
I don't want to harp on this, but that's the second time we've seen him in pain where he looks silly.
I think it's because of his eyes. Because he always goes super bug-eyed when he has to do that. So, I guess it's just how he does it. Luckily, that was just real quick for the cliffhanger there. And there wasn't any of the crazy zoom in and out and turning that we had with the tentacle monster. So, So yeah, we've gotten a lot of comments saying that, I guess we'll get into like political or more current events and stuff with Pertwee. Like there was a lot of that with Pertwee's era, which makes sense. It was in the 70s. It is hilarious though that we're already jumping into that. Not for anything current, I guess, with the 70s, although you said the whole thing about species and stuff, but with stuff that's happening now, with this whole, there's a disease and you need to get the vaccine, and Dr. Lawrence, boy, he's stubborn and didn't get it, and it drove him mad.
Yeah, and again, I'm trying to think, 1970s, was there any kind of outbreak in the 70s? Not, and again, since it would take months or even a year or two before they could write a story about it, I don't remember anything. So this may have just been incredibly timely.
Yeah. So, I will say with this episode, I kind of forgot about the Silurians until they sort of popped up again at the end. And I was like, oh yeah, that's what we're watching. Like the plot completely shifted into this pandemic sort of story. Yeah. But it's like,
and again, not to criticize it, but there was a lot of very scientific and undramatic stuff going on in that episode.
I mean, I think for a lot of those shots where, it's just a very quiet shot of the doctor and he's just sort of doing his work, I think they were trying to do that to relay the passage of time. Especially with, he's having to go through hundreds of different drugs and combine them and stuff. And then the passage of time of how long Masters has been out to the first person to get sick in Paris, and then eventually creating the cure and giving it and seeing the results of that. So they probably could have found a way of making that a little bit better while keeping it dramatic, but I don't know. I kind of like that it was just a little quiet moment of science, I like this microscope that has a TV on it. That seems way more useful than...
Well, of course, it has been greatly upgraded in the 50 years since the 1970s. The electron microscope is now computerized and everything.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, I guess just from high school science class where it was still just, you got to look through, and that's so horrible when you have glasses on. So you got to take it off, and then I got to try to see, but I can't see because I'm blind without these. So if it was just on a nice little screen, that would have been a lot better.
Yeah.
So, well, we also see how the Master can take the name Masters more efficiently. So, alrighty.
But was he the minister? Does he present himself as the minister?
I don't remember. He might have. It might have been like some sort of general or something. I don't know if it was the same title actually. So we'll have to find out when we get back to that episode.
Now, again, watching the background, the perfectly oval entrance that they make, and again, how do they do it? It has smoke, but it doesn't appear to be some kind of heat beam or anything. So
yeah. It's just their all-purpose head beam that they have.
See, there's the smoke and the waves that make it look like heat, but the doctor doesn't react to the heat. Pulls the bowl, you think he's going to turn around and smack him or something, but they suddenly just walk through a perfectly oval opening.
Yeah, that is really perfect.
Well, now they're going to fill it back in.
Oh, brilliant. How do they do this? What is this power?
It's terribly convenient.
It's not the cleanest job they've ever done.
Doesn't notice the big scar on the wall.
No idea.
You will take us to the nuclear generator, or we will kill you all.
Very happy they said nuclear correctly.
No.
I had a kid in my class pronounce it nuclear again today, or this week.
What are they going to do?
Destroy the Van Allen belt.
What?
The Van Allen belt.
It's the radiation belt around the planet.
Filters out some of the sun's radiation.
What happens when it's gone?
It gets so hot, we will all die of sunburn on a cloudy day.
What good will that do then?
They're reptile, cold-blooded. They'll thrive in heat, we shall die.
The power is still too low.
Went back to sleep.
You will now provide power to
Doctor in a t-shirt.
hibernation machinery.
Lower all the rods in at once. Doctor. Liz, I know what I'm doing. Please do as I say. All technicians to your usual sectors, please.
Now, lowering the
Usual sectors,
rods
please.
stops the nuclear reaction, if I recall correctly. It's pulling them out that starts it.
Yes.
We shall return to our base and wait in hibernation until the radiation has faded. Kill these humans! No! They will all stay here to die from the radiation.
Ah, good idea. You're clearly not being tricked.
You better get out of here at once.
We can't.
Why not?
They've jammed the lift. There's no way out.
Does this place not have stairs?
I have set the controls to revive us in 50 years from now. When our people revive, you will be the leader. See that the apes are destroyed.
Wow, this guy's more willing to take the fall than I thought he would.
Well, that seems to have done it.
Whatever he did.
Nobody is to go into that Silurian base.
Yes, Doctor.
Miss Shaw and I will be back as soon as possible with some testing equipment and probably some other scientists.
Good, good. Well, have a good journey.
Yes. Don't forget, Brigadier.
Give them time to get clear, and then set off those explosive charges. I want that Silurian base sealed permanently.
WHO 1.
There you are. That fixed it.
I may have told you this before. Our license plate on our little Vauxhall Victor was WGP1.
He's blown up the Silurian base.
He must have had orders from the ministry.
But you knew.
No. The government were frightened. They just couldn't take the risk.
But that's murder. They were intelligent alien beings.
You shot the leader in the back.
A race of them.
Well, that's just one. There were more.
Let's just wipe them out.
Oof. That's a heavy ending.
Well, now, the Brigadier said, I want it sealed. He didn't say they were going to kill them. They were just going to entomb them, basically, while the hibernation unit was still working.
Yeah.
So, it'll be interesting, the beginning of the next episode, if there's a confrontation between the Doctor and the Brigadier.
Yeah, you would think. Maybe that'll be like a season-long arc of conflict between the Doctor and the Brigadier. I mean, we've never really had a season-long arc in this show. So,
You know, science and military.
Yeah.
That's basis of a lot of not only science fiction, but regular fiction as well.
yeah. It kind of reminds me, one of the seasons of Torchwood, the spinoff, there's this whole thing of, you know, these aliens that are basically taking the humans hostage and everything, and there's this horrible situation, and it's Torchwood, so there's no doctor, and they kind of it's one of those things where it's like when you have the Flash, and it's like, why doesn't he call Supergirl? It's like, why isn't the Doctor here to come fix this, you know, planetary crisis that's happening? But at the end of that story, one of the characters is talking about, you know, how come sometimes the Doctor doesn't show up, and she says, sometimes the Doctor must look at this planet and turn away in shame. And that kind of reminds me of that. You know, it's like, yes, he respects the Brigadier and Liz and everyone else, but that's one of those moments where I feel like he remembers what planet he's stuck on. Yeah. So,
now, minor thing, but they could have easily done this. At the very beginning, they could have established some footage of the countryside, not like that, but of like an American mining place somewhere, because there are a lot of times where we blow gigantic holes in the earth and the earth just collapses down into it. If they had done that, that would have been a very effective way of, you know, having the Doctor and Liz look out there and just seeing this huge amount of earth collapse rather than... that was a nice explosion there at the end, and again, for 1970s television, that was good.
Yeah.
but it didn't convey the fact that they were collapsing the entire Silurian base.
Yeah, so... And I guess the whole thing is, yes, the Brigadier said to seal the base up, but that doesn't mean necessarily that he didn't inadvertently kill the Silurians. Yeah. So it's entirely possible that could have killed them even in their hibernation. So, because I actually do sort of remember that episode I keep referencing with the 11th Doctor, where he does bring up, like, well, there were other Silurians, and the humans killed them. So, so it could be that, or I don't know, but either way, you would think there would be a scene next episode confronting the Brigadier about what he's done. But
and again, reptiles as far north as the British Isles. Again, somewhat unusual. After all, I mean, they had the whole St. Patrick driving the snakes out of Ireland. But yes, the Silurians wouldn't seem plausible to just have had that base in the British Isles. That there are probably other bases elsewhere. They just haven't reactivated or come out of hibernation yet.
Yeah, and it's interesting they say that well, we'll come back in 50 years, and so this is 1970, so 50 years would be 2020. Interestingly, that 11th Doctor story is set in 2020, even though it came out in 2010. So, man, I'm gonna have to rewatch that episode, I think. So, I mean, it'll be a while before I guess we get there within the run, but I might rewatch that myself, just to see the tie-ins. With
and I'd like to see the update of the costume, because again, that was
it's
very effective.
It's definitely a lot different. Like they keep more of the human face and then put the scales over it, but you can see sort of the actor's eyes and they move their mouth and everything. So overall, this was a really good episode.
Yeah, again, from a script editor, I think showing flashes of the Doctor developing the formulas and the people dying in London could have been compacted down to 90 seconds. It just seemed like there was a whole lot of non-action in that particular episode.
It's one of those where I feel like they sort of were able to do a half episode. Like they had everything, figured out, but it's like, well, this comes out to about 6.5 episodes.
Yeah.
So we might as well move it over to 7 episodes. So they add a little bit more.
Yeah.
I still think it works with trying to convey how much time has passed. Of course, that also brings up the question. It's like, so how long was Masters just out there, like just running around? It had to have been hours then. So, especially with when they bring in, it's like, here's hundreds of drugs that the Doctor now has to combine. It's like, well, that's got to take him quite a long time to get through all of that. Especially when he says that there were a good chunk of them that were new drugs, so he didn't know what they could do. So. To jump into the notes, the first thing I wrote down is primitive weapons, which is interesting that they bring that up. It's like, oh, these primitive weapons, it just sort of launches metal at high speeds, and it's like, yeah, but you're not immune to that. That's still a little dangerous.
Well, yeah, they wounded the one guy, and then at the end, he fired 5 or 6 rounds into the back of the new leader there, and took him at least partially down.
Yeah. So, and then that's the thing, is that they only saw the guns. The Doctor was trying to say, it's like, oh, they have bombs that could blow up continents, basically. Yeah. So,
and if there were actual humans during the Silurian period, their only weapons would have been made of stone and wood.
Yeah.
So the fact that if they had been around back then, they'd go, well, wait a minute, they now have the capability of launching metal, which they wouldn't even have known about metal in the Silurian age. Again, and I don't even remember. I suspect that there weren't humans as we know them at that point. So that they should have realized the humans have advanced considerably since spear chucking and things like that. So
yeah. So, but I mean, I guess it's just that to them, while they have advanced, they're still far less advanced than the Silurians are. So they just don't really. I mean, it's one of those, like, they see them as a threat, but more of, I guess, they're a threat in numbers, and So they pretty much knew they had the more advanced technology and everything. Let's see. We had the whole thing with Miss Dawson, who once the disease was introduced, she's just sort of dropped out of the story.
Yeah.
But for a little while, I mean, she was sort of the one who was going hard on the whole, we have to go take them down and everything.
Yeah.
And it's interesting seeing the back and forth between all of them in that room. You know, you've got Ms. Dawson, who wants to completely, wipe out the Silurians. The Masters, who is sort of more like the Brigadier. It's like, well, if they are a threat, yes, but even Masters was sort of like, well, let me wait and get more information. Liz was siding more with the Doctor of, no, we shouldn't. They are their own species. We shouldn't just wipe them out. And then Dr. Lawrence, who just didn't believe in it at all, which that was a strange perspective for a little while. Like, when he kept going on, it's like, oh, it's just a technical problem with these power fluctuations. It's like, really, dude? Are you still on that? Like, it was interesting for a little bit, but at the same time, it's like, really, man? This is what you're going to go with?
Yeah.
You're going to die on this hill. Literally.
That's... And again, that kind of whole thing goes right up through the late 70s. Again, I'm reminded of the China syndrome, where the owners of the nuclear plant don't want to know that there is a problem with it, and that's why the engineer ultimately has to say, "Hey, look, there's something going wrong here, and if we don't fix it, this whole place could go up in a nuclear explosion." But here, this is just—he's not an owner. He has no real vested interest other than, yes, it is his life's work. But still, if you're a guy who had invested your life into a nuclear power plant and it suddenly showed signs of possibly blowing up and killing hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, you don't worry about your own reputation.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's definitely like Fury from the Deep, where it's like, oh no, we can't shut this down for even a second. We have to keep going, and this is my life's work and stuff. I feel like it's somewhat better here than in that episode, at least with Dr. Lawrence, because yes, he does go to the extreme and eventually, he loses his mind basically. But I will say, for a while, it was more just that, well, he didn't like that unit was there, and there's all this interference and stuff. And for a little while, that makes sense, because there isn't proof of Silurians and everything. And I guess just comparing him to Robson from Fury from the Deep, he started off just angry. Like, this guy already had a chip on his shoulder. He had a whole bag of chips on his shoulders when the episode started.
All that in a bag of chips.
Yeah, so... whereas this guy, he was a bit more calm. He was just sort of frustrated with things that were happening. But as he kept going, then he got more and more angry.
Yeah, and again, I understand, if you're a guy who prides himself on running a tight operation, that's one thing. But when it is very obvious that there's something wrong, the fact that you acknowledge that we're having power disruptions that we don't know what they're about.
Yeah.
That's one thing when you're working in a factory. When you're working in a nuclear power plant,
yeah,
that means an explosion that could kill, or even a leak that would kill hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people.
Yeah.
At the minimum, this is Chernobyl, where there is an expulsion of nuclear, I don't even know, water, mist, whatever, up into the air, that then floats around the globe and introduces cancers and other things into people's systems. So that is. Maybe they didn't know that back in 1970, whereas we are very, very aware of that since 1986, since Chernobyl. But still, I understand for dramatic purposes they're trying to set up an antagonist to the Doctor, but that was a little sketchy, I think. Yeah.
Well, and down to, just the fact that he just completely denied. It's like, no, it's just a technical problem. I mean, like, he acknowledged that it was a technical problem, but he didn't have a plan to do anything. Like, okay, if it's a technical problem, what are you going to do about it? Okay, nothing. So, what do we do? And then just down to, like, I suppose I can sort of understand not believing that the Silurians exist, because he didn't see any. So I can kind of get that. Now, when there's a disease that crops up, maybe that doesn't quite point to reptiles in the caves, but that does sort of point to there's something more than a technical problem that's going on. So, to deny all of that, and then, in the most topical scene of the entire episode, him completely denying getting this vaccine and completely denying that this disease exists, despite the fact that people have died from this disease. That was a weird scene in... I mean, it's weird in hindsight. It's a fabulous scene. It works in this episode, but it's just sort of like you take out of it for a second. It's like, whoa, okay, I didn't realize we were watching today. So,
who would believe that people would not believe in a worldwide pandemic?
Yeah,
because
and then I guess down to once he was infected himself, I guess that's just sort of when he lost his mind completely. But then it's like, other than that, it's like, well, there is proof that all this is happening. It's on your face. But at that point, he had lost it. Yeah. So it was an interesting character, and facilitated that very fascinating scene from today's perspective. But it was just sort of weird, just all the denial that he had. But I don't know.
What's that saying? Denial is not just a river in Egypt.
Well, yeah, it's not just a river in Utah as well. That's the other side of it. Where, have you never heard that?
No.
Where I don't know. I don't know if I can give a specific example, but they'll say, denial's not just a river in Utah, and then someone will correct them and say Egypt.
Okay.
It's in like 1,000 stories. I don't know how you've never heard that.
I've never heard that.
Maybe it's in dumb kids shows. That's why I know it. So.
Yes, let's not get our geographical information from Ed, and Eddie.
Well, they would... hey, in Ed, and Eddie, they would have never acknowledged the existence of other states, I don't think.
By the way, I think you will appreciate this. In one of my classes this week after the test, some students were playing games on their computers, and they were talking about, they were playing like Minecraft and some other stuff. And one kid said something about, that although he does play Minecraft, he loves playing Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And I didn't say a word, but I knew you and your brother would be happy about that.
That's good. Anyway. This is also off topic. But did you know that HBO Max has every episode of Ed, and Eddie?
Let's move on.
All right. Let's see. Well, there's the whole debacle of coexisting with the Silurians, which was interesting. Which they did get more into in this episode, more into the extermination of a species side of the argument. Which that's the interesting thing. We start off with a whole, coexisting and extermination of species. Then we just sort of take a dip into pandemics for a little bit, and then we come back to the extermination plot, which I thought was interesting.
And I would still like to have known what that specific disease was. And again, it looked very similar to bubonic plague because they were breaking out in almost like buboes.
Yeah.
But the fact that they cured it so quickly without saying what it was, because I thought the ironic part would have been when the doctor finally realized what it was, he said, "Oh, that disease was deadly millions of years ago, but today it's something that we can cure just like that. We already have a cure on hand for it."
Yeah, so it seemed to be just sort of a rapid bubonic plague, I guess. Yeah. So, see, now I just want... I want to see Pertwee, but he's got the full plague doctor getup going on. Except he doesn't, like... I want that specifically because he would have, the beak mask and the hat, but you'd still see his, white curly hair through it. That'd be fun to see, so...
Yeah, and this, again, that's just one of those things about all of Doctor Who, and again, I haven't seen all of it, but there are so many things. I mean, putting the Doctor down in the middle of the Black Plague in the Middle Ages, what an interesting storyline that would be.
Yeah.
Because he would have to say something to the effect of, because this has already happened, like the first Doctor with the St. Bartholomew's Eve, although I might be able to save one or two people here because we already know that they survive, there's nothing else I can do about this. Basically, we do have treatments for it now. I don't know if there's an actual cure for the plague, but we do have treatments for it now, just like a lot of other diseases from the Middle Ages. But, and him just saying, it's so frustrating to know that in the future this will become something that is easily treatable.
Yeah.
But because of human history has to be the way it was written, the way we already know it, he has to leave it alone.
Yeah. So, that would be interesting. I don't know if they ever. I mean, I don't know many classic stories from what we haven't seen. So, I don't know. I can tell you that's not really the case in something like modern Doctor Who. Like, the closest would be, like, there's an episode where, like, the Doctor arrives in Pompeii, and he is immediately like, we need to leave. We cannot stay here. I can't save them. I would love to save them, but I can't save them. No. Or, as we saw with the 10th Doctor... with the Waters of Mars,
yeah.
Where, yes, it was a future event, but he did defy time. He did try to save them, and then, the captain or whatever ended up fixing it herself. So, yeah. But the whole thing with coexisting was interesting, and again, they bring that up later with go to which I'm pretty sure in that episode they mention. Going to the Sahara Desert for the Silurians, but you were saying it would be somewhere more where they would have more humidity, which would make sense.
Yeah, because I would suspect that other than the occasional lizards, there aren't a lot of reptilian species in the desert because it's simply too dry. But put them into the equatorial belt there, somewhere in Brazil or in the central part of Africa. Again, a lot of the South Pacific, or not South Pacific, the Indian Ocean islands around Indonesia, places like that, that would make perfect sense.
Yeah. The other thing I could think about for, like, the Sahara Desert is, like, because the Silurians are so advanced, maybe they could take advantage of the heat and the empty land, and then they could create their cities maybe with domes or something to add their own humidity to it.
Now, again, just remember this. The Silurians would have remembered where the Sahara Desert is as a place that actually had vegetation and water and things like that. It's only been a desert for about the last 2,500 years because a lot of the cave paintings in the Tassili Plateau there in Algeria and Tunisia, places like that, show animals that now live in the sub-Saharan and the equatorial jungles, the rainforest there, that apparently used to live up close to the Mediterranean, like giraffes and things like that. So, some climate event happened in the last 300 or 3,000 years that caused the Sahara to go much drier than it is now.
That's interesting. I mean, 3,000 years. You'd think there would be some sort of records or accounts of that.
Yeah.
So,
but again, as far as I know, there weren't any major civilizations other than the Egyptians, who lived far on the far east end of the desert. And again, they go back about 3,500 years or so. So I don't know how far back the Tassili Plateau drawings go, but again, they do depict a region that was full of vegetation and animal life.
Let's see. We've kind of talked a lot about the disease already. Well, we did have the Silurian leader, the original leader, who
the older one,
who was very adamant about making peace and everything. And then, as we said last episode, we had the sort of Tegana doesn't like the humans and stuff like that, which was interesting. And then eventually him killing the old leader.
And that's another thing too. We would have never known that leader was older than the others unless we had the closed captions there. So if someone had simply said, called him Old One or Great Leader, or Ancient One or whatever, so that there would have been we could have seen the dispute between obviously the older, more peace-loving, or the one who's trying to find some solution for both the humans and the Silurians, and the younger ones who said, no, forget about the humans, we're going to take over the planet ourselves.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that's also sort of like the Sensorites, where they had that, although it was easier to tell them apart.
Yeah.
Because I think the leader had 2 sashes, and then the vice chief had one, so it was easier for that to work. But that was sort of the same thing, where I think eventually the leader died, and so then you get the hostile second leader. So, let's see. We also had Masters spreading the disease throughout London.
And that was very effective.
Yeah. And a lot of good on-location shots, too. So,
and again, that tracking shot there in the railway station, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, so... it is also interesting that I guess that he got as far as he did, although at the end he almost seemed to be running from the police, which was interesting. I'm wondering if that's more of because the disease sort of drives you crazy, like we saw with Dr. Lawrence. So it could have been that he got overly paranoid and started to run from them. But they never really explain that, I guess. You just sort of got to put two and two together. But yeah. Let's see, what else do we got? We got the disperser.
That was very much like Batman Begins, where they were using the microwave disperser to put the crazy juice in the water supply, and then they were going to atomize it.
Right. And
again, microwaves were relatively new. Now they had been in military use, but as far as home use and things like that, the first microwaves weren't readily available until the late 70s and early 80s. So the use of the changing the electricity to microwaves, that's very cutting edge for 1970.
Yeah,
if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So basically what they were going to do, they were going to flood the planet with radiation, weren't they? Or they were going to destroying,
dissolve the Van Allen belt, which is like a filter which keeps a lot of the UV rays and stuff out. And so, like Liz said, we would die of sunburn on a cloudy day because the Van Allen belt supposedly does that. And by the way, when I heard of that too, the very first episode, the very first comic of the Fantastic Four, which would have been about 10 years earlier, about 1960, Reed Richards and Sue Storm and Johnny Storm and Ben Grimm all go up in a spacecraft before the United States, before John Glenn and all the rest of those. They get caught in a radiation storm in the Van Allen belt, and that's how they become, Mr. Fantastic and the Thing and the Invisible Woman and the Human Torch. So
I do like how they specify it's like, oh, we'll die of sunburn on a cloudy day. I wonder if they really got to say that. It's like they can't just say you die of sunburn because it's the UK. It's cloudy all the time. So. I was watching a show where they were going through Scotland, and they were saying, God kind of messed up with Scotland. It's like, here's one of the most beautiful things I've created, and it's going to rain all the time. So,
I used to explain about why it rains so much there, and in Ireland too. That there's the big Gulf Stream, which is a current that literally circles the entire Atlantic Ocean. Well, the water gets warm down by the equator, and therefore it warms up the air over it. So it then rains all across the eastern Caribbean. It rains heavily on the east coast of the United States and eastern Canada, rains on the southern tip of Greenland, and the very last little bit of rain rains itself out over the British Isles and France. And then because it is by that time cold, it then heads down towards the equator. That's why it doesn't rain very much on the west coast of Africa until it gets warm and starts picking up the air and the moisture again, and it keeps just repeating that cycle.
Interesting. Let's see.
Reminds me of an old line. I was listening to a song on the radio. They were playing I Am the Walrus. And there's a lyric in the middle of the song that says, sitting in an English garden, waiting on the sun. If the sun don't come, you'll get your tan from standing in the English rain. So you don't tan, you rust.
Yeah. We also did have the reactor. I like that the Doctor pretty much, he didn't bluff about that. It's like he did eventually, get it all shut down and stuff. But for the most part, it's like, nope, I had to make it all legit for them to go back into hibernation.
Yeah. And again, that strikes me as odd because if I recall how the nuclear reactors, at least in the 80s, worked, is that they have all of the uranium rods already in the setup, and they have what are called the concrete and lead control rods. And in order to get the reactor to work, they pull out the control rods very slowly, one by one, so that the uranium causes the water to boil or whatever it does. So when he says put in the rods, that struck me as being the opposite of what should have been happening. So those of you who are nuclear physicists, you can fix that for me.
Do we have nuclear physicists that watch this?
We must have.
I guess. I mean, I'm sure Doctor Who fans come in all walks of life. But yeah, I don't know. If you're a nuclear physicist,
or if you know someone who is,
like, comment, and subscribe. Anyway,
nice plug.
Yeah. And then the last thing I wrote down is seal the base, which I mean, either way, whether it's sealing the base off or actually killing them, the Doctor is not happy about that.
Yes.
Which, honestly, yeah, it's like I can't see the next episode starting without some sort of confrontation there, or if there isn't, then things may at least just be tense between the Doctor and the Brigadier for a little bit.
Now, Liz did say he might have been acting on orders from above, in which case there was nothing the Brigadier could have done about it.
Yeah.
But he should have told the Doctor. I mean,
yeah,
they're right there at the beginning of this relationship, and they're going to be working together for years, obviously, and he should have said, Doctor, I wish I could do that. I mean, I understand what you're doing, but the Ministry of Defense has said we have to seal the base.
Yeah. I mean, he did specifically... I mean, either way, he did it behind the Doctor's back.
Yeah.
So yeah, honestly, it's a pretty heavy ending for this episode. But yeah, overall, it was a pretty solid episode.
Yep, I liked it.
Through and through.
And I was also thinking, how we were very confused about the transition to Troughton, because those first couple of episodes, he really didn't seem to develop his own personality. And we always said, by the time we got to, what was it, the Smugglers or the Highlanders, that we began to see that. So we're seeing Pertwee almost immediately start, I mean, even in his very first episode in Spearhead, that he's starting to do that. And to me, that is a much better way to do it, because it allows the audience to go, okay, we know the transition took place. We know this is what the guy's going to be like. Okay, we'll just go with that. But to sit there that first couple of episodes with Troughton and just go, what's going on here? What's he's not doing anything that we can see. Yeah.
Well, and even like at the beginning, I was kind of thinking, I was looking at some moments and being like, well, I could see Troughton doing this and this and this and this. And kind of now, especially after this episode, this whole story, I would say Pertwee is more of just a more reserved, more stoic version of Troughton. Yeah. But there's still a lot of similarities to Troughton. Like, I could see him in this sort of situation. And especially this, where it's like, all right, the Doctor has to go off into this room and do his science stuff. It's like, that is very similar to what the second Doctor had to do with the invasion. So there are a lot of similarities, honestly, between the third Doctor and the second Doctor, but I'm now starting to see more of him going off into his own direction, as the more reserved, not quite the trickster, the clown that the second Doctor was. Yeah. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. Yeah. And I've just looked over at the time. We are at about 1 hour and 55 minutes on the recording, but that's a standard length. So, with any luck, this video, the edited video, is less than 1 hour.
That'll be good.
Which we have not done in a long time.
Well, only 3 episodes. That also helps.
Yeah, so we'll have to see. We'll have to see if this keeps up.
What's up next?
Good question. Next up is The Ambassadors of Death.
Ooh, okay.
It's very specific. Yeah, I have no idea what that could mean. Yep. Maybe it's Pertwee versus the Grim Reaper. Specifically, the Grim Reaper from Bill and Ted, maybe. That'd be funny. So
they gave me a Melvin.
Yeah. Anyway, we will have to see. So, with all that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around to any of those. There's a playlist for all of our Doctor Who classic reactions, as well as a playlist for all of my modern Doctor Who reactions, where you can go watch that Silurian episode I kept referencing. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.